Motion brand design. Lesson number 2. We finalized the Wordmark for our concept brand below. It's now time to learn how to move a logo type from Adobe Illustrator to After Effects. Correctly setting up your design in Illustrator can save you lots of time and headache when importing them into After Effects. Designers are often confused at this point and make lots of mistakes, leading to fuzzy logos, non-editable text, and merged layers that cannot be animated. This process will help you avoid those common mistakes. And today, I'm sharing with you my current workflow, which takes just 5 steps. I'm Kay Wu, a motion brand designer based in Manchester. I build motion-first identities for brands that move with purpose. My goal on this channel is to show as many brand designers the strategies behind adding motion to brand design. We're doing things a little differently today. You'll be spending a lot of time following my work inside the software, getting familiar with a lot of shortcut keys, and selecting menu items that help make our process a bit more efficient. Grab a notebook and take some notes. I'll now show you the proper way to move brand elements from Adobe Illustrator to After Effects in just 5 steps. You can rewatch this video as many times as you need. It's a lot of information and I do not expect you to remember it all on the first try. I surely didn't. To help you, I created a one-page PDF that's linked in the description. It's free to download and summarizes all these steps for you. Again, this document is completely free and on the house. Happy holidays. Let's get started with our first step. Step 1. Converting text to outlines. Text from Adobe Illustrator imports into After Effects as non-editable vector layers, so we won't be able to change what the text says once it's already been imported. If we wish to change what's inside the text layer, that needs to be rebuilt in After Effects by using the Type tool. Allow me to demonstrate for you what I just explained. So we're going to hop into Adobe Illustrator. Please excuse my board, it's a bit messy, but if you're a designer, you understand how it looks sometimes. So let's take this logo type for instance, and the byline here. This text underneath here will no longer be editable the way it is in Illustrator once we import it into After Effects. So right now I can just type whatever I want here. I can change this out as many times as I like. But once we go to Type, Create Outlines, so once we turn this text into outlines, which is the shortcut key Command-Shift-O, I can no longer change what this says. As well as once it gets into After Effects, it will be a vector layer, so I can't change what this says. But if we're going to future-proof the brand, or who knows, maybe we want to do some cool things when it comes to animating, we want this probably here to remain editable. And a good way to do that would just be to rebuild it using the Type tool in After Effects. Converting text into outline changes a text into shapes, and those shapes allow you to manipulate, the anchor points and the corners so that you can create custom word marks and letter forms, just as I did for our concept brand here below. I'm also pressing Command Y to go in and out of outline mode so I can see the outside of the letters. Super important step right here. Before we convert this text here into an outline, we want to make sure we keep a copy of it handy in the original illustrated document. So we go to Type. Before that's done, I'm going to go Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in front. And that gives us a copy right here for us to always have on hand. So Command C, Command F. And as you can see, there's a copy right there. You can also drag one out by holding Option as we drag, placing one down here for safekeeping. We can also go into the layers and we can hide that. That's not going to be needed. Okay, so we can now go to Type, Create Outlines. As you can see, we have outlines. And now we can jump into After Effects and let me show you how we can still have this editable text even though we already made it into shapes. Once inside After Effects, you can see that we have the text layer, but it's not editable because it's a Illustrator file, which means it's a vector. We'll need to go ahead and make this into a guide layer, and all the guide layer means is that it just will not show up visibly in a render. So once we create a video, you won't be able to see this layer. But what we're going to do is use it as a reference by pressing T, which is the opacity. You can turn that down, and this can now act as a reference for now as we rebuild using the horizontal type tool or Command T right here, and we can type London. Make sure our fill color is the same. And this is how you get editable text inside of After Effects. I can double click here and I can type anything I want. And of course you just select the same typeface, the same font, the size, and then you can position it in the same position as well, so you make sure you know the size and everything is correct. So let's say right now I don't know what that size is, I don't know what the type of font, anything of that nature. This is how we get back to find that information. We'll go right on the same guide layer, right click, we can go to Open, Edit Original, and that takes us back to the original Illustrator file, where remember we had a copy of the editable text that gives us the details and the information on type of typeface it is and the font it is, the size, those type of things. Let's go see. So again, on the guide layer, we right click, we go to Open, Edit Original, and it takes us right back into the Adobe Illustrator file. We can go into the Properties panel, select our font here, but remember we had one hidden. So let's go and find that hidden layer. There it is, which is our editable text. Now when we go to the properties, we pressed on this, and here you can see this is our contextual toolbar here. Or we can just go over to the properties panel on the character. It's Switzer variable medium 36 point. So we can hop back over to After Effects, change this, so double click, you can look up our font. Switzer variable 36 point, Command Enter to get out of there. A good practice is to center the anchor point. You can do that using this tool over here, the pan behind tool, which is Y, and just double click. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Or you can manually drag this now, holding Command to get to the center. Or there's a faster way to do it. Function, Option, Command, left arrow. Gets it right to the center. And now we can just drag it into place. Zoom in here. Try to make sure it's as close as possible. If you need to see a little bit better, you can go to this layer. It's the guide layer. We're pressing T to bring the opacity up just a little bit more. I brought it up to about 11%. Now we can go back. Oh, see, it's very important. You want to make sure that guide layer is locked, so you don't mistakenly grab it and move it out of place, because you want it to be pixel perfect. So to lock this guide layer, you can go over here to the lock, and now it's locked. Or you can simply just press, with this layer selected, Command L, and that locks the layer. That way now that can't move. These are our vector layers, and this is our text layer. So you can just move this here into place best you can. Try to line it up. Did we get the sizing right? Let's go back, right click, oh, unlock it, right click, open, edit original, and it was 36 point. It's a variable medium. We go back, so let's just bring it up just a little. 38. I'm just using my arrow keys to nudge it a little bit, so that you can see the difference is minimal. But that's how you have editable text in After Effects. I can put anything I want here, and this is very handy when it comes time to animate. text layers can be animated in After Effects via the text animators. So you just twirl down this text layer and you can go to animate and you can change position, scale, rotation, opacity, whatever you want to do. However, one thing I always do is to duplicate this text layer, Command D, and I go to create shapes from text. And that is basically creating outlines in After Effects. So in Illustrator, we created outlines and turned it into shapes. And in After Effects, we can do the same thing. And that gives us a little bit more flexibility to animate. So you just go to right click, create shapes from text, and then it creates shapes. You can see from the star, that's a shape layer. We no longer need this duplicated text layer. So now we have a editable text layer and a shape layer, which is no longer editable, but we can just do a little bit more when it comes to animating with this type of layer because it's shapes. We can adjust its path and do a few of those things, which is kind of what we did in Illustrator to create the custom word mark. So there's the text that's editable, and we have the shape layer that's not editable. And that's it. Step 2. Clean up anchor points of letter forms. Anchor points are what we use to animate our logo type. Most times these anchor points are based upon the typeface or font that was chosen. The position of these anchor points sometimes cause loops or knots to form, especially after using the shape builder tool when you created a custom word mark or logo type. And we must clean those up and take out those wrinkles, so to say, before they're imported into After Effects. This is a pretty straightforward step. You should not take a lot of time here, and it can be done pretty quickly. Sometimes it can be skipped altogether, but your letters or text must be converted to shapes or outlines in Illustrator first. Then using the direct selection tool, which is with the letter A, you can go in and manipulate, move, and shift those anchor points. Sometimes you have to ungroup everything first with Command-Shift-G, or you can go to Object, Ungroup, and that allows you to manipulate individual letters. And then once you're done, you can group it back together with Command-G, or go to Object, Group. Again, this is a case-by-case basis. You might realize for your project that you don't have to do this step at all, but it's always best to know about these things before they catch you by surprise on a client project. This is how you can quickly go through and inspect. Command Y or view outline mode so you can see the X-ray of your logo type. That way we get to see each anchor point using the A direct selection. You can go in and select individual anchor points. That way we can move them over and connect up some of these things that causes the loops or the little nicks that we need to smooth out before importing into After Effects. As you can see, just trying to move it over sometimes develops gaps that are unpleasant. So to avoid this, we can use something called the Shape Builder tool, which is Shift-M. You must first select your letter. So you go back to the selection tool and you choose the letter, go back to the Shape Builder tool, and now you can simply just draw a line that connects these parts that causes a bit of a gap. Holding down your left mouse button, you can just connect that in that way. Now you have one letter form that's all smooth and ready to be brought into After Effects. Again, that's with the Shape Builder tool, Shift-M, hold down your left mouse button, draw a line. And then you just go through the rest of your logo type and see each letter, and you can do the same thing. So here we're doing it with the byline. We ungroup it first, and we go in with the Shape Builder tool once it's selected, and we can just connect that letter. And holding down square, you can just move it over. Holding down your space bar, you're able to move over and see the rest of your logo. Or I use the middle mouse button and I just press that in and move it over. Then we can go to the Shape Builder tool and connect up our letters. Again, for some letters this is not necessary, like the O, it's fine. But others, you have to do this. Like I said, this step can be skipped for some, but for others it's something to just keep mindful of as you're going through and creating. So far we went over how to convert text to outlines in step 1, how to clean up your anchor points for each letter form in step 2, And now it's time for step 3. This one is non-negotiable. It's the most important step in the entire process. So pay close attention, I really want you to get this one. Step 3, separating each visual element onto its very own layer. Then of course, naming each layer so we know what they are once inside After Effects. By default, Adobe Illustrator sets all designs on one layer, named, you guessed it, Layer 1. This works perfectly fine for design, but when it comes to motion, we want to have control over each individual element. To achieve this, every single element has to be separated onto its very own layer. Now this step can be a bit tricky, but once you practice and you go through it a few times, you'll get the hang of it. Go to Window and see that the layers are checked. On the right hand side, look for the Layers tab and click it. There you should see Layer 1. Twirl down the arrow and you'll see all the layers from the design that are within Layer 1. Let's select our word mark and ungroup it. Command-Shift-G or right-click Ungroup, or you can even go to Object, Ungroup. Once ungrouped, return to the Layers tab on the right-hand panel. Choose Layer 1 and it should be highlighted. Go to the 3-line hamburger menu at the top right and look for Release to Layers Sequence. Once pressed, that will automatically place each individual element onto its own layer. Shift select all of the sub-layers and drag them on top of Layer 1. Layers with the mini arrow next to it represents a layer that has design elements on it. Any layer that you do not see this mini arrow represents an empty layer, and that needs to be deleted. So we'll select the ones without the arrow, go to the bottom right at the trash, and just click Delete. Time to name our layers. Naming your layers can be a bit tedious, but it's a good habit to build. Naming the layers inside Illustrator saves you time once they've been imported to After Effects. Skipping this step will have you completely lost when it comes time to add motion to these layers, and you'll find yourself a bit frustrated with the whole process. Heed my advice and come up with a system of naming and numbering these layers within Illustrator. Or you can just cry later. The names we give layers in Illustrator will carry over to After Effects. In the Layers tab, press the circle to the right of each layer to see which specific element is on that layer. Double-click on the layer name to rename it. Press Enter once done. Where there's two of the same element, I usually name them in order from left to right or top to bottom, and I start with the number 0. This is the same ordering system used by index arrays inside After Effects. So just trust me, start numbering with 0 instead of 1. You'll thank me later. And as motion brand designers, we're always thinking about ways to future-proof our brands. It's best practice to create some new empty layers in the event some designs are added, changed, or altered. Because clients never have revisions, right? To create these empty layers, you can press Command L. And these empty layers can also act as placeholders for the official brand color palette, which may or may not have been decided as yet at this point. We can choose a few random colors for now, and they can easily be updated in the future. Once we update the colors within the Illustrator file, that will also be updated in the After Effects file. Once that's done and you've labeled each layer, we can move on to the next step. Step 4, establishing the exclusion zone or clearspace for your word mark. The exclusion zone or clearspace is specific to brand identity design. It establishes a perimeter or bounding box around the logo type that must remain clear of any design element. This ensures that we keep the visual integrity of the logo intact at all times. Clarity and legibility remains high as a result, and the clearspace should be grounded by an element from within the mark. This sets a minimum distance between our word mark and all other visual elements. Using rulers and guides with the shortcut Command R, we can create a bounding box for our logo that will carry over from Illustrator into After Effects. Sometimes the bounding box might be a bit too big for our word mark if you just use one of the elements, so it's better to use half X or just half of one of the elements to establish that perimeter around the word mark. Once you have all of your perimeter established, you can go to the rulers, Command R, and drag out some guides. To get that perimeter, use the rectangle tool, M, and just draw out a square, establishing that square around the logo type. The bounding box should be converted into an artboard because the size of our artboard in Illustrator equals the size of our composition in After Effects. Therefore, the artboard is going to be resized to the specific dimensions we set for the exclusion zone or clearspace before importing the word mark into After Effects. In order to convert our rectangle into an artboard, we go up to Object, Artboards, Convert to Artboard. And just like that, we created an artboard for our logo type. Another shortcut to take note of is Shift-O, which gives you the artboard tool. And we're going to use this artboard tool to drag out our artboard that we just created from the original one. So by going into Rearrange and the artboard options, which is in the Properties panel on the right side, we can update the settings so that we can drag the artwork from our artboard straight onto the canvas. So using the Rearrange option, we can go to Move, Artwork with Artboard. Once we do that, we're able to now drag our artboard from this canvas, and everything comes along with it. We've done all the work, successfully prepping all elements and correctly setting them up inside Adobe Illustrator. Now it's time for the payoff. Here is the final step, and to me, the easiest one of them all, Step 5. Importing design assets into After Effects from Adobe Illustrator. But first, let me tell you about some plugins which can do this final step a lot faster and speed up the process. Overlord from Battle Axe, at the time of this recording, is retailed at $75 USD. This moves just about every element possible from Illustrator into After Effects in just a few clicks. It's been praised for keeping gradients consistent across software, as well as finally allowing for editable text between programs. In its most recent 2025 update, it also now works for Photoshop. Path Link, which can be found on AE Scripts. At the time of this recording, it retailed for $10 USD. It was created as a simpler plugin to Overlord and focuses primarily on moving only path vectors between programs. It's very limited and does not have nearly as much functionality, but it was designed that way. AE UX, which comes from Google GitHub. At the time of this recording, it's free to download, and this moves elements from Figma into After Effects, which is a popular UI UX web design software that is free. And these days, it's being used more and more by brand designers. I find myself using it a lot more for some brand guidelines as well. My next video briefly covers moving elements between the two software if you're interested in how that looks. Plugins are neat. However, I wouldn't get too hooked on them. They can get very expensive and they also have their flaws. After many routine software updates, these plugins can become incompatible or develop bugs which can lead to After Effects crashing your project. As well as when working with other designers or agencies, they might not have the same plugins as you, and this has to be considered and limits the files you're able to share with them. That's why my philosophy is to never rely on plugins to complete a task within After Effects. Mark my words, they will fail you in the middle of a client project when you're up against a deadline and can least afford it. It's just how things work most times. Always learn the manual way, using the built-in native controls of the software first. Then, I would recommend trying out some plugins. But, limit how many you purchase and use. Don't be a lazy motion brand designer. With that said, here's the final step 5. It's the manual and most reliable way of importing your design elements into After Effects from Adobe Illustrator. First, you start by having your Illustrator file all named and labeled. Save it as an AI Illustrator file. So that'll keep the vectors. Make sure it says Create PDF compatible. And then you can launch After Effects. Inside After Effects, we'll create a new composition, which is essentially creating a new document. Doesn't matter the size. Here I just did a regular Instagram carousel size. We can resize that composition viewer with the mouse button, the scroll wheel, and then we can import our Illustrator file. Go to File, Import, File, or you can press Command I or double click on the left hand panel, which is your project panel. Locate that Illustrator file wherever you saved it, and you want to import it as a composition retain layer sizes. Retain layer sizes ensures the exclusion zone or clearspace that we established in step 4 remains around the perimeter of our Wordmark at all times. This becomes the overall composition size inside After Effects. It also centers the anchor point for each separate layer on the design, making it easier to select elements inside the composition viewer and animate each individual design. Bounding boxes are now all proportionate and do not take up the entire screen. Drag the composition from the panel on the left hand side down to the timeline or layers panel. The composition is the one that has the icon next to it with the shapes on it, and the folder are just your Illustrator layers. We're going to be working with the composition. Have a look at our logo inside the composition viewer. You can see the bounding box that surrounds it based upon the squares that are forming the perimeter. That is not the exclusion zone or clear space that we established in Illustrator. And that is the first mistake that I was trying to have you avoid when importing your layers from Illustrator into After Effects. We want to get this right the first time. The less time spent here, the more time we can spend adding motion to our brand. We're going to delete all that we've done, start all over, and do it the proper way. In Illustrator, we need to make sure that we're selecting the artboard that was sized based upon our exclusion zone or clear space, that we chose an element from within the brand mark and created. Once that proper file is imported into After Effects, our composition size will reflect the exclusion zone or clear space. Quickly save your file. I like to put AE, After Effects Ready, on the back end when I'm saving it, so I know that all the layers are separated and ready to go for After Effects. And then go back and import it into the After Effects program. Inside After Effects, there are many ways we can import our Illustrator file quickly. We can go to File, Import File, double click on the left hand panel, press Command I, or lastly, drag and drop our Illustrator file directly into the panel. Personally, I use Command I just think it's one of the fastest ways to do it. But no matter which way you choose, just make sure you always import as a composition retained layer sizes. That will make sure that our exclusion zone or clear space represents the composition size and always has that boundary built in around the logo type. In order to see our logo now, we're going to drag the composition down to the timeline or layers panel. A faster way to do this is just by simply pressing Command \\. That's the one with the question mark on top of it. This instantly puts an asset from our project panel on the left down to the layers panel below. Now we have successfully moved our logo type from Illustrator into After Effects with the bounding box or exclusion zone or clear space intact. This is a very big step and I'm really proud of you. Before we do anything else, there must be some organization that takes place. We have to name our folders and clean up that project panel on the left hand side. It's really important to do this because as you get more and more assets, that can get pretty crowded and unkempt, and it can start to get a little bit frustrating or make you a little bit flustered when you see so many layers happening at one time. My method for tidying up utilizes folders, and I call it the stoplight method. Red light, yellow light, green light. The top assets folder is red, the middle pre-comp folder is yellow, and the bottom green folder is the main comp. I put numbers before my folder names so that they always remain in the same order, starting with 0, 1, and then 2. Red gets the 0, yellow gets the 1, and green gets the 2. Place the imported folder inside the assets. The created pre-comp can go into pre-comp, and the main comp goes into main comp. And now we have a neatly organized project panel. This is a great habit to build for the future when we use lots and lots of files. Now that the organization is done, and we've imported our files, what do we do next? Double click to enter into the pre-comp, and there is the Illustrator layers that we named all in one place. We cannot see our logo though. We can move this comp view around using the middle mouse button or H for the hand tool. And once you press this toggle transparency grid, you're able to now see your logo. You can go up to composition settings with Command K and you can adjust the background color, maybe to a 50% gray. And now we'll be able to see our logo constantly. There are the layers that came over from the Illustrator file. We can toggle these on and off, and it's also set up the numbering system that we also set within the file. Our Illustrator file is linked to this After Effects file. So anything we do in Illustrator changes over in After Effects. Let's try change a color here. And once you save the file, once that file is saved, we go back over into After Effects and the color updates. And it will update for any existing layer. So let's try to change a letter on our logo. Okay, let's change to this color. Once you save the file, and you go back over into After Effects, the letter updates. So After Effects has an active or dynamic link between Illustrator and After Effects right now. We can also go to the toggle switches and modes or press F4 and you can see this continually rasterize button. It looks like a little sun. Pressing that for the vector layers forces After Effects to read the vector information that's present in Illustrator. And this will avoid our logo from ever turning blurry or pixelating when we scale it, move it, or do any type of motion to the design. You can select all with Command A to choose all layers and turn on the continually rasterize button. This must also be turned on for the pre-comp that hosts those Illustrator files. So we go right here to the sun icon and we turn those on. And now, no matter what we do, this will be seen as a vector because it's dynamically linked to the Illustrator file. As for these empty layers that we brought in, we can use this shy function. It looks like a bit of a turtle hiding or a ghost, I don't know. And we can set those to shy, and for our brand colors, we can set those to guides. Guides mean that they won't show up in the videos. This hide function now hides those layers that we set the hide function on. Another important thing is to center our anchor points on the logo. We can use this using the pan behind tool or pressing Y. And we move it into place by holding the command and just dragging it. Another function of it would be to use the shortcut keys. But it's important to center the anchor point because any scaling that's done happens from that specific point that we set. To move our logo, we can press P for position with the layer selected, and we're able to move the X and the Y axis. We can turn on our title safe grid to help us position our logo into the center. We can turn this off once we no longer need it. To operate the scale function, we just press S, and we can set a keyframe by pressing on that little stopwatch. Press the space bar to play it from one keyframe to the next. The first keyframe was 100, the second keyframe was 200. And now we can just copy and paste our first keyframe and move it over to the 4-second mark, and we can paste it there. So now we're going from 100 to 200 back to 100. And that's a scale animation. You can just save your file and you're all done. But wait, we can do some more cool things. We can go into the pre-comp and we can move each individual element of the design by itself, because we already set this thing up in layers in Illustrator. Without doing that step, we would not be able to move these things one by one and create these cool, creative motion and animations that you see online. Sometimes the UI gets in the way and we can go to Command-Shift-H to get rid of this. So View, Show Layer Controls, and that way we're not able to see the UI. We can disable that so that for when we're moving things, we get to see it, and we can turn it back on by going to View, Show Layer Controls, Command-Shift-H. Be sure to save your file when you're done. Sometimes the computer can be a bit stressed out. If you go to Edit, Purge, All Memory and Cache, as you can see, there's 22 gigs here, and we can just get rid of all of that. That frees up some space and memory on your computer. We can also turn down the quality of the playback. It doesn't mess up the quality of the render, it's just the quality of this playback screen on the comp viewer. You can change that from full to quarter, and that helps the computer when you're going through doing your rendering and doing some playback. It makes it a bit smoother if it can get choppy or it slows down. It also helps avoid After Effects from crashing. Another way to create outlines in After Effects is by selecting those vector layers, go to Create, and create shapes from layer. It's the equivalent to in Illustrator when we converted them to outlines, but here this is just converting the vector files to shapes. And the shapes give us a little bit more flexibility when it comes to motion, and we can do some creative things with it. It automatically hides or disables those vector files, so then we no longer will need to continually rasterize for those because it's already automatically turned on for shapes in After Effects. So I would go back through, find those vector layers, and I can turn off the continually rasterize function for those. as well as turn it off for the pre-comp. Once you do that, save your file and you're good as golden. You're ready to go. You're ready to start doing some animations, having some fun in After Effects. And now you know the exact way, the proper way to move your design assets from Illustrator to After Effects, how it dynamically linked, and this puts you way ahead of a lot of designers, a lot of motion designers, because you now have an understanding of both sides of the programs. Let me take you through a quick application of our logo type and why we created that exclusion zone or clearspace. Whenever you want to put another brand side by side, you don't want it to be crowded. So that exclusion zone we created can be used as a guide, and you can just draw a guide out and see the box. And we know now how to space another logo next to ours. Having good knowledge and understanding of this process puts you light years ahead of most motion designers. This is more of a brand design specific detail, and other designers, even some clients, would love to receive these types of prepped, organized files. It makes working with you so much more pleasant and efficient. A huge part of motion brand design is knowing the ins and outs of various tools and software as you go about creating motion systems for brands. Technology is constantly developing and evolving, especially with the onset of AI. You must commit yourself to being open to shifts in the industry, learning new programs, and creatively exploring unique methods. Correctly setting up your design assets helps to make that process a lot more efficient and gives you more time to be creative. Follow the 5 steps from this video and repeat them for each of your projects. Soon enough, it'll become your own process and be second nature, helping you avoid irreversible mistakes that can be a huge time suck. No more pixelated logos, text that are not editable, or merged layers unable to be animated. Please leave a like and comment letting me know what you learned from this video. I read all of your comments and reply as fast as I can. If you're new to the channel, I hope you subscribe and follow along as we continue our motion brand design process from scratch. Watch the next video, which covers ways to move elements from Figma into After Effects. Figma is free to use and open source, so it's a good software to add to your designer toolkit. And don't forget, I have a free PDF document in the description below, which summarizes the 5-step process and has links to the plugins I mentioned. Thank you for watching. I cannot wait to read some of your comments. Remember, always design with motion in mind. Don't be the designer who still makes static brands in a moving world. What are you waiting on? Subscribe now.